Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode number 48, our one-year anniversary show here on Pro Wrestling Powerhouse Radio. It's a big night. It's a huge night. We have none other than the one and only Lex Luger live with us right here on the line. We're going to be talking about the true story of a world champion professional wrestler, his reign, ruin, and redemption, Wrestling with the Devil by Lex Luger. Lex, Mr. Luger, so great to have you on the line. Thank you so much for coming on the show tonight.
Hey, thanks, guys. It's an honor to be here. Happy anniversary.
Thank you very much. Been 1 year in the making here on Pro Wrestling Powerhouse Radio, and the name of our show and ProWrestlingPowerhouse.com, our website, comes from wrestlers just like you. I've always idolized the true powerhouses of the professional wrestling business.
Well, thank you. That's very kind words.
You got it. Tell us, let's kick it right off. Let's get it started. Let's not hesitate. Wrestling with the Devil. It's a personal memoir by yourself, and it's getting a lot of praise over the internet from the readers. I am getting the book. It's in the mail as we speak. It's coming my way, so I will read it. But tell us a little bit about the book and what made you write this memoir.
Well, thank you. I never thought I could write a book or even that I'd do one for a couple reasons. Number one, I was one of those guys in school that was challenged to write even a 2-page essay. So that was a hindrance. And also the fact that my family was not strongly in favor of me doing a book. They would much rather me just leave the past and not discuss it. But so many of my friends and mentors in my life and people who encouraged me, wanted me to do it. And then how I met some people at a credible company in Chicago called Tyndale Publishing. They're just a wonderful group of people. They're a big publishing company. They've done you guys familiar with Tony Dungy and all his stuff, football coach?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, well, they did his stuff, and they introduced me to his literary agent. He encouraged me to the story, and I had a writer friend out of Atlanta by the name of John Hollis who wrote an article on me in the local Atlanta paper. He wanted to help me do it. So just so many doors open. Sometimes things become very clear. I prayed about it. I thought about it. I consulted with so many people, and you can only speak and share your story to encourage other people at so many places. They said if you go online, with a book, people can download it. They can buy it at a bookstore, and you can reach more people that way with your story. My goal now in life is to encourage others. So with that in mind, it became very, very obvious that I need to move forward and do the book. So it turned out wonderful. Tyndale did a wonderful job with it. They kept the wrestling upbeat, and which it was a real high point in my life to be a wrestler and around the fans and travel all over the world. They kept that totally wonderful, and they put the blame of my failings and shortcomings and bad decisions I made outside of wrestling where they remained on my shoulders where they should be. So I'm really pleased with how they did the book and how they told the story of my redemption. So I'm very excited about it.
And they were also very great in communicating with me personally over the email, getting you on the show tonight. Now, the book, like you said, you can get it anywhere, Amazon.com. You can buy it through our Pro Wrestling Powerhouse Amazon store as well. They give a little back to the show. But you've also had a great, tremendous career in professional wrestling, and we want to just stick with the positives here and talk to me a little bit about your start in the professional wrestling business. You're obviously a football player. You played college football. You're in the NFL. But how did it come about, getting involved in professional wrestling?
Yeah, number one, guys, you can ask me whatever you want because I discussed the high points of my life and also my low points because there's lessons to be learned from the low points. So don't be shy about asking me any question you want. To adversity, we go stronger, my brothers. So anything you want to ask me, feel free, number one. Number two, some of the highlights of my career, you said?
Yeah, there's a lot of highlights and everything, but how did you really get your start? Why did you want to become a professional wrestler and everything?
I wasn't even sure about it. I was a fan we used to watch when I played football. The football players, we all like to watch wrestling, but I didn't grow up watching it. I walked into the Championship Wrestling in Florida, and in the off season from football, and talked to a guy behind the desk there. I went there a few times. It was closed. I finally got a guy there named Danny. He introduced me to Hero Matsuda, ended up becoming my trainer, took me to the dungeon for 3 months, trained me in the 115-degree heat with the air conditioning off down in Tampa in the summer. He took me into the ring, trained me. He's just a legendary guy. Trained Hulk Hogan, Paul Orndorff, didn't ask for a penny or any compensation, just loved the sport, wanted to get back to it. He actually even went to the ring. He'd never done this before. He was my manager for the first couple years of wrestling. I think he thought I was so new, he was afraid I'd mess up, so he wanted to be there ringside in case I got lost in there. He was I wouldn't have been in wrestling if it wasn't for Hiro Matsuda. Just a great family man, just a great guy.
Yeah, the stories of him are synonymous with wrestling, about how he broke Hulk Hogan's leg, something along those lines, when he was training him. But that's fantastic.
Fortunately, he did the hooks they call how to break bones. Fortunately, he didn't do that to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell me a little bit now. I'm really into weightlifting, bodybuilding, staying in shape, and you just have one of the legendary physiques of all time, whether it's a bodybuilder, professional wrestler, no matter what, throughout your career. And what is your number one tip for anybody who's training hard in the gym? What would you tell them, advice-wise?
For most guys, I'm sorry, I lost you for one moment. For most guys, I tell them is to balance their training and don't overtrain. Most guys undereat and protein, and they overtrain. So I go, make sure you get enough protein every 2-3 hours if you want to build muscle, I'm talking about. And because you need a lot of protein, at least 1.5 grams per pound of body weight if you really want to grow. You got to do that every 2 or 3 hours with a shake and then a meal, a shake, a meal. And the second big tip is to be consistent. I found that get in the gym, do what you got to do, but don't overtrain. Don't train for 2 or 3 hours. I used to train, believe it or not, an hour a day on the weights. And I'd do that, and I'd be done with it. So hit it hard, hit it heavy, and then get out of the gym. And make sure you eat enough protein. That would be my top 2 tips for guys who want to get big and strong.
That's great. Yeah, I'm going to take that advice to heart, because at this point I'm trying to get big and strong, but I'm also trying out for the police academy actually on Thursday morning. So I got to really get my cardio going before that. I've been training that way, but
definitely
it's going to be tough.
You can do it. Yeah, you can do it.
Absolutely. I'm pumped. I'm just going to go all out.
Yeah, so the heart muscle is the most important muscle, for sure. So you got to do some cardio, too.
Absolutely right. I'm going to bring in one of my co-hosts, Will TLD Vafidas. He's an independent professional wrestler, and he's got a couple questions for you, Lex. So, Will, go right ahead.
Hey, Will.
Oh, my God, I'm talking to Lex Luger. This is, like, the best day of, like, all days. This is so awesome. I have a picture of you right here on my wall.
Celebration.
Hey, it's a celebration for me, because when I was a kid starting out watching professional wrestling, you were one of the guys that I looked at, you and Brett, and I have a picture of you on my wall, autographed, so this is truly awesome. But one of the things I want to...
You're very kind.
Oh, no problem. One of the questions I had, and thinking all day about a couple different questions, but one of them was about the Lex Express. I was all about that Lex Express. So did you actually really... How long did you travel in that?
6 weeks. We went almost to every state in the country. I think we went to like 42 states.
How did that come about, where they were going to come up with the idea of this Lex Express, and after the body slam of Yokozuna? Tell me about how that came about and what your thoughts were going to changing from your heel role into a face.
I thought they were out of their minds. I was all having fun being the narcissist in the mirrors and the pyro and the girls, and I got called into Vince McMahon's office off the road. We were traveling 300 days a year then, in Stamford, Connecticut, where headquarters are outside New York City here. And I thought, what did I do wrong? I thought I was getting called into the principal's office. He sat down with me and laid the whole thing out, the slam on the USS Intrepid on July 4th. I was like, I didn't know, can anybody slam that guy? And then and he told about the bus, too. He laid it all out. And for SummerSlam, called it, I thought out of his mind. He was absolutely spot on. He truly is a marketing genius. It was the USS Intrepid, the reaction was incredible. One of the high points of my career, the Lex Express tour was wildly popular. We went to some appearance like a Toys R Us, for instance, in Denver, and there was 8,000 people showed up in the hot sun in the summer. It was like 110 degrees. The fire department had to come and bring people water and stuff. We were waiting in line. Amazing.
Wow.
And it was an incredible tour. It was a lot of fun.
Were they planning on putting the belt on you? Because it seemed like that SummerSlam you were destined to win that match, and I was curious. Were they talking about putting the belt on you right there?
It's funny. All the fans thought that. That's what Vince wanted to think. He actually, the whole time, had an angle planned right out of SummerSlam with The Undertaker versus Yokozuna, because Yokozuna was such a great champion. And if Vince says they ever did decide, he never promised me, to do the belt with me and Yoko, they would do it at WrestleMania 10 in the Madison Square Garden. He thought that would be a real special place to do it if they went their way. But he never, contrary to a lot of people's conjecture, Vince McMahon never did promise me the belt. He only said he thought about it and he wasn't sure. And if he did do it, it would be at WrestleMania 10 in the Garden, which, of course, ended up with Brett, which was fine with me because I had an incredible angle at the time. Worked out of WrestleMania 10 to wrestle with Mr. Perfect. Kurt Hennig was a dream of mine to work with him because he's such an incredible worker. So that didn't come up, unfortunately, about after WrestleMania because Kurt couldn't come to terms with Vince. But that was the idea from SummerSlam with Yoko and Undertaker, and then it was Yoko and Brett out of WrestleMania, and I was going to go wrestle with Mr. Perfect.
Wow. One thing in between that was Survivor Series 93. One thing I remember, one of my favorite Survivor Series, but it was you and a gentleman named Ludwig Borga in the end. Now, I'm very curious about that guy because he wasn't around too long, but what was your impression of him, and were they planning on making him a lot bigger than he was, or was he going to be a big star, big heel star like Yokozuna? What was your impression of him and where he was going to go in the WWF at the time?
I can't speak for the people in the office. I was never privy to their conversations. But I think they had pretty big plans for him to be a top heel. He had a great look. And he was the real deal. He was a tough guy, and he was from over in Europe, and he was bad-mouthing the Americans. And so I think they had pretty big plans for him as a top heel. And personally, I thought he was a great guy. He didn't have a lot of experience. And I still, at that point in my career, needed some guys to work with who were more experienced because I was still learning. But so I didn't say we had any match classics, but I enjoyed working with him. He was a good guy, but he was interested in a lot of things other than wrestling in his life. And I think with Vince, he didn't want any divided loyalties. And he wanted you to be totally into being in the WWE family, which I agree with. And with Ludwig, at the time he had some divided loyalties outside of wrestling that he wanted to pursue. And I think that might have, this is just my opinion, held him back from developing into what they wanted to develop as well.
All right. Thank you very much. Yes, thank you. Go ahead, Jay. A lot more people.
That's what I can give you on him.
Yeah. Lex, we're going to just real quick, I want to ask you about, Will just wanted to ask one more question, and I'm going to let Will ask this last question, then I'm going to kick it to my buddy John, who's got some questions for you. So, Will, go right ahead. One last question for Lex.
Yes, so I was at WrestleMania 10 where the crowd was chanting pretty much bullshit because they were obviously upset that you didn't win the belt. But was there a plan for you and Brett to have a face-versus-face kind of feud?
No, I was going to wrestle with Mr. Perfect, who was the referee who didn't count Yokozuna when I had him pinned. So I was going to wrestle Kurt the heel, me the face. Crypt Mr. Perfect. That was the next program for me that was planned for the rest, really for the all the way into SummerSlam that year.
How come they never let you use the torture rack in WWF?
Oh, good question.
We did use it some. When I turned Narcissist, when I came there, Vince wanted me to use something different. We went with the flying forearm, so I had the steel plate in my arm, and I still do. And he thought that was an easier. Vince is into easy finishes, meaning he doesn't want you to have to try to hoist Yokozuna up on your shoulders because, number one, you can't do it. And you watch a lot of the finishes this day, a lot of his top guys, the guys use a simple finish, and that he thought the flying forearm was a very simple finish. He liked the idea that I had that steel plate surgically embedded in my arm. It could create controversy. So that's why initially I did not use a torture rack.
Okay, yeah, it was a great angle with the steel plate. I remember it clear as day. Like I was a huge fan of Lex Express, and I always thought it was going to be like come right down my block or something when I was a kid, because I was only about when it was at its height. I was only about like 8, 9 years old, so I swore that thing was going to just drive down my street one day. I'd always wait for it outside.
Somebody was on the lookout.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to bring in my man John, JCD from Brooklyn. John, man, you got anything for Lex tonight?
Yeah, hey, Mr. Luger, how you doing? Nice to talk to you.
Hey, I'm right down the street from you. I'm right in Manhattan right now as we speak.
Nice. 5 minutes away, right over the Brooklyn Bridge.
The Empire State Building right now, all lit up in red.
Yep, nice. I always wondered, I'm a little older than these guys, so I remember a lot more like your early WCW run as a total package and the first time, with the Horsemen. When eventually your U.S. run, if it was going to end with Vince, was there ever talk to maybe putting you into a character kind of like the way the total package was, ever turning you heel or anything like that? Did that ever come up with Vince?
Yeah, we were talking about some different things right before I went back to WCW for the Monday Night Wars, but we just never came to an agreement on contract. I worked actually beyond, which I talk about in the book, beyond my contract for 6 months, and it just happened to be an idle conversation with my friend Sting, who found out I wasn't under contract, which, a couple weeks before the Monday Night Wars began, that I ended up going back to WCW. I was pretty much set on re-signing. Vince wanted me to re-sign. I wanted to re-sign with WWE, and I had just a casual conversation with Sting where he found out I wasn't under contract anymore, and a couple weeks later, I was in the Mall of America, nose to nose with Hogan.
Yeah, I remember turning on TNT that night, and I was like, "What? Wow, how the hell did this happen? Before the internet, before the dirt sheets, whatever."
Yeah,
I remember that. That was
crazy.
A cool moment, man.
I was in a house show up in Moncton, New Brunswick the night before, and I was in Mall of America the next night. House show. I wrestled Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon in a tag match that night in Moncton, New Brunswick.
Huh.
And the next night I was on team nose to nose with Hogan for WCW.
Nice. And you were originally going to work with Davey Boy, right? Because I think I remember being at Madison Square Garden the summer of '95, and that's when Davey started cutting those "Please Don't Chant USA" promos because he felt they offended him. You were going to work Davey right after SummerSlam?
No, he was going to work actually with Diesel.
Oh, wow, okay. So you guys were, even to blow up the tag team, you guys were never going to work together?
Never say never, but that wasn't the initial plan.
Oh, okay. Cool. Thank you very much, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, we're getting some good inside stuff here.
Can't wait to read the book.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
No problem.
This stuff is gold, Lex. Thank you so much. My other panelist is a huge fan of yours. He's a big fan of WCW. He lives in Georgia and has followed WCW all throughout the years. He doesn't really like WWE. He's more of a TNA guy right now. But let's kick it to my man, Toph. What's going on, Toph?
Hey, Mr. Luger. How you doing today?
I'm doing great, fellow Peach State boy.
Man, the first wrestling toy I ever got was a Lex Luger toy. It was one of those. It was one of those big, plumpy, puppet-like toys you don't really see anymore. And it had a little red button, and when you pressed the red button, it said, "I'm going to put you in the torture rack." I used to play with it all the time.
I love it.
I used to play the WrestleMania arcade game. I used to play as you all the time. I used to win the titles. But yeah,
Thank you.
I got some questions for you. The first question I got for you is the moment I fell in love with you, no blowback, at World War III was when you torture racked the Giant in 1996. It was you against the Giant, Hall, Nash, and Six, and you eliminated them one by one. And the Giant had you in a corner, and he went for the splash. You got out the way, and you racked him. And, I mean, you couldn't get him up all the way, but at that time, you know, the Giant was huge. I mean, he still is huge, but he was really huge then. And I always wanted to know, like, was that a planned spot? Did you know beforehand you were going to rack him, or was that just kind of like in the heat of the moment kind of thing?
No, I knew I was going to rack him. I had a good rack on him, actually, in Nashville one time in a singles match.
Oh.
Huge moment,
yeah.
Yeah, it was. He was a big boy.
The second question I have for you was that Nitro when you beat Hogan for the title.
Watermelon on my back.
What about the Nitro when you beat Hogan for the title? I mean, did you expect that kind of reaction? I remember when you finally beat Hogan, the crowd just went crazy. I had never seen anything like that before. It was like
they went insane. It was unbelievable, that crowd that night. They never expected that. It was such a secret that I didn't even know until I was getting ready to go to the ring. They didn't even tell me.
Ah, okay. I got one last question.
The referee found out on the way to the ring that we were switching the title.
That's funny because I remember when Hogan tapped out, he kind of had a surprised look himself, which kind of shocked me as a kid. The last question I have for you, and this was something that always kind of annoyed me. Well, it did happen later, but when they were building up Goldberg, and he had his undefeated streak, and he was just running through everybody. Now, later on when you had your heel run, you did eventually have a few matches with Goldberg, but I always thought it would have been great for you to have a match with Goldberg when you were still a face, you know, because you had pretty much been, you know, with the exception of Sting for a long time, you were like the face of WCW that was kind of leading the war against the NWO, and I always thought that if you had a match with Goldberg while he was getting over, it would have been like a really huge clash. Was there a reason that didn't happen? Did they tell you not to fight Goldberg, or, I mean, what was the deal there, or did Bischoff or anyone tell you?
They never told me, but my feeling, if you're asking my opinion, was that they wanted to keep Sting coming out of the ceiling. They wanted to keep Goldberg the up-and-coming superstar, and they wanted me to be, I was sort of the sacrificial top baby face every night on Monday night. I got tobacco juice and nachos and everything thrown on me, and they left me laying every night, and Sting would come save me from out of the ceiling.
Ah, okay, I understand.
It definitely worked good. If they pitted Goldberg against me, it might have been that they thought they would really throw out the whole Monday night NWO formula.
Yeah, it would have, because when Goldberg won a title, he had that amazing, often should be talked about more, that great babyface feud with DDP. And I always thought as a kid that should have been you. But, you know, I'm a huge DDP fan too. But thanks for answering my questions. See, I'm nervous. I can't even speak right.
No, thank you very much. Good questions, all you guys.
Mr. Luger, I got one last question from one of our listeners. It's from Adolfo Gomez on Twitter. And he wants to know what your original thoughts were on the New World Order.
Oh, man, what a wonderful plan. Who would have ever thought it would get that big? I mean, you know, kudos go to Eric Bischoff and Hogan and Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, Sting. They kind of all together worked on that, and it turned out to be absolutely mind-boggling in popularity and ratings. Just a great game plan.
Yeah, it really changed the landscape of professional wrestling in general at the time. Yeah. I just read that earlier today that you're signed on to be in the Expendables 3. Is that true?
You know, I keep on hearing that rumor, but I'm not scheduled to be in that.
Okay, yeah, it's over the internet.
Yeah, I know.
I'm glad we could shoot that down tonight here on Pro Wrestling Powerhouse Radio.
I mean, never say never, but I haven't heard anything. No, I'm not. I'm not.
Okay, yeah, great. That's great to actually know because we can get the exclusive here. Lex Luger will not be in Expendables 3, unlike what these dirt sheets are reporting. And
there you go.
One last question I have for you tonight. And we know Wrestling with the Devil is on bookstores everywhere on the internet, audiobook. You can download the ebook as well, Amazon.com, or you can go to the Lex Luger book website. But one of my favorite wrestlers of all time is the Macho Man Randy Savage. And I grew up here in Jersey, so I was always a WWF guy growing up, Hogan, Savage, and all that stuff. I always loved Macho Man. What was your relationship like with Macho Man Randy Savage throughout the years?
Contrary to what a lot of people probably think or might assume, behind the scenes we were always very good friends. Traveled together for a long period of time, worked out the gym together, traveled Europe together, we were card buddies, played cards together, and even later on, when I had a relationship with Elizabeth, he'd already been divorced for so many years. He'd brought other women and valet to television, so we were always totally cool with each other, at least from my viewpoint. So I always had a good relationship with Randy. I think he's one of the best performers ever, and I'd love to see him in the Hall of Fame.
Absolutely. I'd love to see you in the Hall of Fame as well. I think it's only in due time. And I just received one more question for you, one last question. Sorry, but somebody wants to know, the title of the book is Wrestling with the Devil, and there are so many pro wrestlers from your era that literally have been wrestling with the devil in the literal word. And a lot of these guys are making that comeback, just like you are. Scott Hall, Jake the Snake Roberts, to name a couple of them. And I know Scott Hall follows me on Twitter. I talked to him a couple times, and I've learned that you guys live close to each other, you hang out and stuff. What are your thoughts about some of these guys that were kind of in your era that are making these dramatic comebacks right now?
Man, I'm so thrilled to see Scott with his son Cody. They dropped by my command center condo and hang out, and he looks the best I've seen him in so long. And to see these guys, everybody like myself assumed we were going to die a premature death like so many wrestlers before us, to see these guys get it together and with Dallas's help, and I'm really excited for them. I'm thrilled. It's great.
That's great. So Wrestling with the Devil, you can find it everywhere, newsstands all over the place, bookstores, and you can follow Lex on Twitter at @GenuineLexLuger. I've noticed you do a lot of inspirational quotes pretty much every morning, afternoon, and I love reading them. They really help me with the start of my day.
Thank you. I'm trying to just get my feet wet now. I hope to expand it later on. I'm just new to the Twitter world. But thank you.
Absolutely. Any final words for the wrestling fans out there that have followed you throughout your illustrious career?
Just that I really love and appreciate their support and through all the years, and wish everybody a wonderful evening.
Thank you so much, Mr. Luger. It was a pleasure having you on the line tonight on Pro Wrestling Powerhouse Radio. We appreciate it more than you will ever know. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. Happy anniversary.